alive. I'm David Schuster. This is Cliff Schechter. Cliff, we are alive, but unfortunately what has died, what is dead is free speech. The murderer was ABC Disney. And what ABC has done is they've taken free speech and free expression after slicing it in the back. They've now buried it in a shallow grave, but at least the tombstone has some Mickey Mouse ears on top. So,
yeah, isn't that nice? I think what we should do, everybody, because, they're very protective of their mouse there, is everyone should, their mouse brand is maybe everybody should come up with creative memes and put them out there about what has happened to Mickey Mouse. I bet you can come up with some creative ones. That's ABC. I felt this is so important. I talked to David about this before the show. I think I should have said at some point, this is amped up, our regular show. We do on Thursdays every 2 to 3, and we've got Julie Roginski coming up, who's awesome. Yeah. I was in the battle against the crazy gun nuts for a while, and always will be, but was sort of working with Everytown for gun safety. And the NRA was like this blocker and tackler for the gun industry because they knew they would take all the flack, and everybody would say, "Oh, Wayne LaPierre," and that's kind of why they made the big money, even though I think they then stole more and got Russian money because none's ever enough if you're them. But the point here is, so many people get away with this stuff. They get to behave like this and destroy our democracy and fly under the radar. And I think that needs to stop. So the biggest owner of television stations, of these ABC stations, is Nexstar, a huge conglomerate. When we were successful in stopping Sinclair, a place I once contributed to, from buying Tribune, guess who did? Nexstar. They're the biggest owner of local TV stations, and they suck. And I'm going to say that from now on, I'm going to go after them and attack them, and we're going to name them. And again, we're going to say, as we always do, because we are not them, absolutely, positively, not even the slight. I don't even want you to touch a fingernail. There's no violence. We don't believe in that. But if we make these people famous and we give you, let's say, the corporate phone number, you want to maybe give them a call, let them know how you feel about the fact that they're murdering democracy. I'd like you to do that. I'd like them to be uncomfortable. I'd like them to feel our rage for what they're doing to our democracy. So,
and just in case. Before you do that, and just in case, I was going to say, just in case anybody is a little bit, loaded in the news, or is not exactly sure what happened with Jimmy Kimmel, for people who did not see his Monday Night Dialogue, he talked, and by the way, on Friday, he offered heartfelt condolences over Charlie Kirk's assassination and the shooting and talked about how we can't have violence in this country. It was really moving. Well, on Monday, he basically sort of did a throwaway line where he said this is a tough weekend for MAGA world. They spent most of the weekend trying to, essentially, I'm paraphrasing here, say blame anybody but themselves or pin the blame on anybody but themselves, which is truthful. MAGA was out there trying to say this was trans, this was whatever it was. They just went into overdrive to claim that this was a left-wing conspiracy. But so I guess some people took that as, Jimmy Kimmel is, being insensitive. But then the other thing that he did, which I think actually got him in more trouble, is because he then showed a clip of Donald Trump being asked about Charlie Kirk, where somebody says, Charlie Kirk was a friend of yours. How are you doing?
Didn't care. Yeah.
And he says, I'm fine. And by the way, look at this incredible, construction that we've started on this new ballroom. And so the Jimmy Kimmel came out of that and said, Donald Trump is in the first stage of the new stage of grief, which is construction or destruction, whatever it is. So clearly he's mocking Donald Trump. Donald Trump freaks out. The ABC stations freak out, even though what Jimmy Kimmel was saying was the truth.
Right. So now he's suspended. You and I and Stephanie Miller, we were when we were on Wednesday on our StreamYard live stream, we talked exactly about that same thing. We went into how Donald Trump did not care. How he during the Kennedy Center vigil, guess what he was doing? Playing golf. I'm sure cheating too, because that's the only way he knows how to play. But the point is, he doesn't care because he's a sociopath and doesn't care about anybody. So this is why when I was a kid, I had a few different dreams. One of them was to be a presidential speechwriter. Yeah, I guess I wasn't that cool of a kid. But
you
high
wrote
school,
ads, though. That's pretty cool.
Towards college. Well, I ended up writing ads. I just meant I wasn't that cool because most people were like, I want to be a baseball player. I mean, this is more like high school level when I knew that wasn't happening. But the other thing, was at some point I was like, I would love to host a show on one of these places. Now I get to host a show here. And I'm telling you, there's literally no amount of money you could pay me to go over there. I wouldn't go near MSNBC, CNN, and swear to God, I don't want anything to do with them. They make me sick. I'd have to sit there and pull every punch and lie about everything and pretend everything's equal and everything's okay. I have friends who are at these places and, not these places, but certainly not Fox, but MSNBC and a few at CNN. I'm like, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it.
Well, they do it. I mean, a lot of them do it because they don't have any other place they can go, and it's a paycheck. And sure, there is some prestige to being in a multi-million-dollar television studio and having a camera man point to the camera that you're supposed to look at, and having somebody talk in your ear who's a producer. I mean, there, and the limousine rides and all that stuff that's fun. But to your point, corporate media is so corrupt.
That's what I mean. So like, we've all done this, David, because I've had that, I mean, you hosted on these shows. I was a contributor at Sinclair. I was on these shows. I had people speaking into my ear and sending the town car for me and all that stuff. And with having been through all of that, I can still say, like, that's what I don't understand is that prestige. I guess I'm just wired in a different way, because to me to think, well, I'm getting prestige, so it's cool that I'm lying about what the real causes of Charlie Kirk. And, I can say whatever. I can't make any Charlie Kirk jokes. I have to point out how leftists are responsible. I mean, at some point, I don't understand how anybody does that and retains their soul and can look in the mirror. Maybe here's the deal. Maybe I do it for 1 year, give me a $20 million contract, and then I get paid the next 5 years, whether I'm fired or not. I get myself fired the first show, and then we're all set.
Well, to your point about not being able to understand, I think most Americans also don't understand, and that's why, I mean, all the polls now show and all the surveys show that more Americans are getting their news from online and YouTube. And then also, what struck me is the latest poll that found that more Americans who consume news, they trust YouTube streaming shows more than they trust the mainstream media, the broadcast networks and cable. And I think it's because people get it. They see that on independent media like this, there's an authenticity. We are not filtered. We don't have bosses standing over us saying, oh, no, you need to be both sides on this. So, and people see right through the mainstream media now. And so it's a losing business. And I think, there's some argument that I've heard a couple of friends say, well, Jimmy Kimmel was costing ABC more than he's bringing in. Well, if that's the case, then ABC before this should have said, hey, we're going to terminate Jimmy Kimmel at the end of his contract because this business model doesn't make sense for us.
Correct. And that's why I don't believe that that's true, David, because if he was losing them money, no matter how many people he was getting to watch, clearly, and not everybody will remember this, but he had a very emotional experience a couple of years ago. He used to be straight down the center kind of guy. And then I don't remember if it was his son or daughter, but there was a experience at the hospital when his child was born and needed some kind of special care. And he sort of started tearing up on stage and saying, I can't imagine, and they were talking to us about insurance. It's like, I can't imagine that there would be a family in America that would not get that care at that moment when this most precious thing is. And just for that, and just for saying that everyone should have it, the right, of course, as usual, did what they do. And he was threatened and called names and called a communist and this and that. And I think they pushed him to the left, and after that, like when you've been through one of those cycles of these right-wing flying monkeys coming after you, you tend to not like them as much. And so, but again, if maybe that change from being straight down the line to being more liberal in what he did, because he clearly leaned left in a lot of what he said, and we knew it. He didn't hide it. If that wasn't working, then you come out and you say, hey, that's not working. We're not making money. But that's bullshit. Clearly it was working, because it was only not working after the Charlie Kirk thing. Like with, the thing with Colbert, when Trump started complaining about Colbert and getting angry about it, suddenly Colbert wasn't worth it anymore. I don't believe it. So.
I'll never forget, Cliff. I mean, we were talking also a lot about management and executives in media. And one of the reasons why I think I was so enamored with going into the mainstream media 30-some years ago is because one of the first managers that I had in local news, you like to joke about the Emmy. The Emmy I won was because of an investigation that I did.
Emmy Award winner, David Schuster.
The Arkansas Mobile Home Commission. It's basically a panel that investigated manufactured homes, mobile homes. And the investigation revealed that this local commission, was totally corrupt, totally in bed with the industry. So we did this 5-part series. And literally after night 3, and by the way, the mobile home industry is the biggest advertiser on the station that I worked for, was an ABC station in Little Rock, Arkansas. And so they pull all their ads. And I'm thinking, ooh, how's this going to go? The general manager calls me to his office. And I'm thinking, what's going to happen here? And the general manager, bless his heart, bless his soul, because he's died a few years ago, Dale Nichols, he said, look, Schuster, you are doing great work. we have so many and we were the number one station. He says, we have advertisers that will happily replace the mobile home industry. If they don't want to be part of the station, fuck them. You keep going. And I was like,
Exactly.
that's it. That's the manager you want. He says, wear this as a badge of courage that they're pulling ads because they don't like this investigative piece you did on their industry. That was my sort of mindset in terms of, oh, this is what media management, news management is supposed to be about. But heroes like that, they don't exist anymore at local television stations
there are
or
a few of them
networks.
here and there, but you're right. They are very few. There's that one in Tennessee, that
Yep.
local reporter, Williams or whatever, who speaks up. There's that one who challenged Boebert out in Colorado, who's still there, but I'm wondering how long they're going to last in our current environment because they've spoken truth to power. By the way, what David didn't tell the end of the story is, of course, is that the low cost rental home industry filled in for the mobile home industry, and everything was okay in the end. Okay, that wasn't. I guess that wasn't. That clearly wasn't a good joke. So we're just going to move on. Hey, it's time to get Julie Rodzinski in here. I never said.
And by the way, for people who are saying, when did this happen, Schuster? It happened 30 years ago. That's how long ago I did this whole story, pre-internet. But anyway, Julie Rodzinski is good. Yeah.
There's no way David's that old.
I age well.
Should we show people that old clip of you from the Oklahoma City thing where you're like
what
a
I
baby?
Looked like I was 12.
It's awesome. Phil Williams. There's Tim Wood. Yeah, that guy's awesome. I worry about Phil Williams in terms of if he'll be able to, stick it out there because, clearly all these guys are all turning on us. Yeah. And we'll talk about Julie is an expert in terms of having been in the media industry like David and I. So it's kind of a.
By the way, I interrupted right when you were you gonna give away the news, the Next Star information, or I interrupted you when you were on that thought?
I'll give that at some point while we're here. We'll make sure to kind of toss it out there, and I've got their.
And for people who are like, oh, I don't know if I have a Next Star station in my town or my community, Next Star also owns News Nation, which is the sort of the national cable, which likes to sort of claim that they're the fastest growing. That's also Next Star. So, I've made the decision. My family was never going to go back to Disney World anyway. Now we're definitely not going back to Disney World. And I was like playing around. I was talking to my wife today about let's pull Disney Plus. Like, why should we pay for Disney Plus on our Roku? She's like, well, the kids really like Disney. You can't do that to them. I'm like, okay, I hear you. But there are different ways we can all take an action.
I put in on notes on here on Substack that this is the kind of thinking we all need to be doing.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I get it. I realize there are one or two shows I love that are on Paramount. And it's going to be tough because, again, Disney at the moment, but all of these people have now bought off Trump or, what Amazon's done. They've destroyed the Washington Post,
yep.
And so if there may be a book that you can only get at Amazon. Like, we can't be purists if there's something you have to get, whatever. But if you can get it at a different bookstore, do it. If you can see something on different channels and these big conglomerates, do it. And if we all make that effort to get the hell away from them as much as we can, we're having Julie Rodzinski problems. We'll have to see what's going on there. Maybe I'll cancel and try again. But if that's if every one of us made that concerted effort to turn these people off, to not watch, I've already, as I said in my house, there's only one cord, and it's only because, ironically, we wanted to get local news and we weren't able to get it another way. Now I've seen that we can. So we already got rid of most of our cable. I canceled all of those newspaper subscriptions because I started hating them. Ever since we see no connection between Russia and Hillary a week before the election, I was done with the New York Times. The Washington Post, after what's-his-face took it over, well before they pulled the Kamala endorsement, all of that, I was done with them. LA Times, same thing, when that guy started bending the knee. Like, I've got the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Cleveland Plain Dealer, who both were honest brokers. I don't know the Cleveland Plain Dealer's owner, but I know the Philadelphia Inquirer is owned by a foundation, and they give honest reporting, and they were the only ones to call for Trump to get out of the debate after that first debate with Biden. Not Biden, because Trump was a liar. Philadelphia Inquirer, if Will Bunch is watching, who I always talk up and whatever, that's a good one. And they've got great news there. This Cleveland Plain Dealer, Chris Quinn, their editor, was like, we're not going to pretend things are equal. They're not. We will report on Biden and whatever, but we are going to tell you the truth about Trump. If that's still the situation, I haven't looked lately, but I'm still subscribed to them. I will not subscribe to these crappy places. And then there's this other wonderful one called blueamp.co. You can all subscribe there. You'll see me and David. You'll get our writing. And guess what? We have a bonus feature we're going to add, which is going to be just, I'm going to talk to David after the show about that. We've talked about doing this where we're going to tell you private behind the scenes stories in politics and elsewhere. You're not going to get anywhere else if you become a paid subscriber. And also know that some of those paid subscriber funds will go to our Soundcheck fund. We've already given out 5 checks to smaller creators. I'm going to cancel this with Julie and try again. And
while you're doing that, I also want to mention also in Blue Amp, Frederick Pogue, who's our operations officer. He had a phenomenal take, which I caught his video on Jimmy Kimmel, and he made the point, which, I hadn't sort of thought about it, but he said, this is the ultimate proof that MAGA world, Donald Trump, his media sycophants are weak. They're not strong by doing this. They are weak. They are so weak that they get flummoxed, that they feel crushed because of a comedian who was a throwaway joke. That's what gets them so angry and irritated, and they can't handle it. And he said, this is the proof that we have the weakest president we have ever had. Weak mentally, weak psychologically. He may have, strong political powers of the Republican Party, but it sort of gets to his core. Donald Trump, literally is the weakest president we've ever had. And ABC, the House of the Mouse, well, they've got a spine which is akin to wet spaghetti or something like that.
At best, yes.
Yeah.
I would say their spine is about as tough as the top of Donald Trump's hands. That purple mush. It's cankle tough is what it is. Cankle tough.
Cankles like taco tits.
Cankle, that was... I love that you say these things now, David.
By the way, did you see some of the protesters in London, some of the signs that they had? They're freaking hilarious. They have, Donald Trump in the blow up, as the baby, and Donald Trump. They had one, people carrying around a sign of Donald Trump as a Nazi in like a diper with a Nazi German helmet. And he's really fat. And I mean, I give it to the British. They know how to protest with sort of a glimmer in their eye and a British sense of humor, which is brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, I lived over there. They are good at political protest. They have a long history of it. I'm just trying to write to Julie and see if there's issues, or because we know that there have been many with when it comes to when it's a StreamYard stuff, guys, you can all laugh at me because that's my fault. But with this stuff, like the signal doesn't go through sometimes.
Yeah. Dale Bernstein is on. Phyllis Graham and 3 others are joined our live stream. So thanks. We got up to almost 400. It looks like.
So, and I know
who are watching us. So we appreciate all of you coming on.
So unless I, said something like, "Hey, it's on it," or you should join us at 2 p.m. Pacific. But being that I don't ever say that because I've never lived on the West Coast, I don't think so. But I do think that we always have the technology issue here. So we'll see. I just shot a note. We'll see what happens.
There were also some protesters in London who made a big deal. And this was like my favorite. So, Windsor Castle. It's like one of the famous landmarks in London.
Yes.
And the night before Donald Trump got there, British protesters found a way to project all the various videos and images of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein on the side of the castle.
Brilliant. Absolutely
so
freaking brilliant.
So well done.
Yeah. I mean, again, I studied over there for a semester. I was down in the great city of Brighton, which is about 45 minutes south of London. So it's sort of an exurban city, if you will, and a nice city on the water. But I spent a lot of time up in London, and they're just, again, they've been at it longer. They're more creative about their political protests than we are. Mm-hmm. They also use more colorful language. They've made it so that certain words, and I think you know what I'm talking about, that you can say there that it's like every other word for them there. We cannot use here because they are words that offend women and we cannot say.
Yeah.
But if you watch the what I consider to be one of the most incredible series I've watched lately, I'm going to recommend it for you, David. Mobland, with Thomas Hardy and Pierce Brosnan and Helen Mirren, which is just amazing. Oh my God, every other word is.
I was mesmerized, but then like the group chants the other day of people doing sort of the sing-song chant and then the word CUNT, Donald Trump is and they're all singing.
Right.
And that's like, oh, that's so awesome. And, speaking of Epstein, they have, the royal family who a lot of people in the UK, they love the royal family.
Right.
It has its own stain with Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew. So this is a story that they are familiar with. And so, the Jeffrey Epstein stuff resonates with them. And that brings me to the other thing I wanted to point out is the clock is ticking now until we get to those 218 signatures in the U.S. House, because next Tuesday is the special election in Arizona where Raul Grijalva's daughter is going to win this thing, and she's already pledged to sign the petition. And hey, it's Julie Roginski!
Hey, you guys, I am so embarrassed, and I'm so sorry. The only thing I could say is I had a little bit of an emergency with my son at school. Everything's okay, but I could not figure out how to tell you this while at the same time.
All good. Your son is okay. That's the most important thing.
Yeah,
he's great.
You have to, if you know at all anything about me and David, and we both have sons, and I have two sons, and they come far before anything else in the world.
Yes, but
it's them and everything far behind. So all you had to say were the words. There was an emergency with my son at school, and our response is he okay?
He's great.
If he's great, that you didn't show up, and that was because of that. That'd be the best reason, taking care of your family.
I appreciate that. All right, let's talk fascists. What's going on?
Yeah, those fascist bastards. Well, we started on them.
Yes.
So I mean, what's cool, and I think gives us, I don't want to say I have gravitas on anything, because that really is not true. I don't know that I have gravitas and me are in the same room, but you were I don't think anymore. You can tell me if I'm wrong about any of this stuff. In the past, a contributor to CNBC and to Fox News.
Yeah.
I was a contributor to Sinclair, the infamous and wonderful Sinclair. Wow. And David, of course, was an anchor at MSNBC and CNN.
Yes.
So we know corporate media pretty well. We've all been in those rooms, and what the fuck is, I mean, I don't know how else to say it. And we talk like that on here. So my apologies if that, but what the fuck is wrong with them? Why do they have no spine? Why do they suck? Why do they believe in fascism? Anything else? I don't know. You got here a little bit late, so I'm just throwing it all at you, Julie.
You want me to tell you why Fox News sucks? Are you kidding?
No. Listen, you can tell your Roger Ailes story.
You really want an explainer in that one? Because
I think I saw you in a movie.
I'll give you an explanation about ABC.
You know what? I'll tell you what.
Okay.
Bombshell, which is a movie that was made allegedly, I can't say anything because I have an NDA, but was made based on my experience, the experience of some women at Fox, apparently streaming on Netflix. Somebody told me this morning. Go watch it and you'll understand why Fox News sucks.
What about ABC?
I'm sorry, ABC? ABC.
You have no NDA with them, do you?
ABC, no, but I do go on ABC all the time. And I gotta be honest with you guys, I'm not sure I'm gonna do that anymore. It's not fair. It's not fair to the anchors who work there. And I get we all have a job to do. But I am because let me put this in perspective from my perspective here. What they effectively have done is explained to people that there is no bottom. There is no bottom. And it's not really about Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, it is about Jimmy Kimmel too, but it's more about the fact that they keep feeding the beast. And the beast will never be sated. The first thing you know about a bully is that when he punches you and you cower, he'll keep punching you. And the 16 million should never have happened. And I don't care if they were embarrassed about what George Stephanopoulos said and texts that were turned over to Fox, then screw George Stephanopoulos, throw him overboard. I don't really care. The fact that Stephanopoulos did not walk out after being humiliated like that makes me think a lot less of him.
I know.
And I know him slightly back from my political days back.
I do too. I knew him from the Clinton era when I was doing stuff for them. But
how much money do you need, George Stephanopoulos? It's okay to retire on principle now. And
continue.
And and so that's one. And then two, I don't know if the people at Disney, starting with Bob Iger, have realized this yet and have come to this conclusion yet, but it's very clear that Trump is coming for them. This whole, I don't know if people realize this. He put out this tweet about Antifa last night. I don't know if anybody focused on it. But
I didn't focus, but I saw it, and it was, his.
Yeah, but it's. I think it's the most important thing that he's done. And the worst thing that he's done. And I think people need to focus on.
And that's saying something, right?
No, you guys, this is for real. And this is scary. He puts out this thing about Antifa last night when he's obviously not sleeping at Windsor Castle. And I'm laughing because the descendant of George III who was feting him actually has less power than the president who was supposed to be not a monarch, thanks to the Supreme Court. But I guess he can't sleep, and he's hanging out at Windsor. And
do you know if they have golden toilets there? Because I hear that he has trouble using a bathroom if they don't.
I have been to Windsor. They don't have golden toilets, but it's so opulent.
That could be the problem.
It is opulent that enough for him to actually feel at home.
Okay.
So he is basically truthing out whatever this thing that he's on Truth Social does, where he says something like, "I'm going after Antifa because it's a terrorist organization, and anybody who funds Antifa is a terrorist too." Well, here's the problem. There is no such organization as Antifa. It doesn't exist. And I spent over a decade at Fox, and if I told you about $1 for every time I had to hear about fucking Antifa, I'd be the richest person on earth, except that much like Santa or the Kraken, Antifa doesn't really exist. So he knows that. So Antifa, much like the Russians, the Soviets used to define socialist realism as whatever they wanted to define it as, and if you didn't comport with it in the arts, you would be shot or sent to the gulag. In the same way that if you are Antifa, Donald Trump...
And Julie is originally from Russia, we should say, and it can speak
I can speak to the gulag very well. Right. But so my point is, if you define Antifa as whatever Donald Trump wants to define Antifa as, then anybody could be defined as Antifa, and therefore anybody could be accused of domestic terrorism and be prosecuted by this Justice Department. And the Supreme Court is going to bend itself into whatever pretzel it needs to allow him to do this.
Well, he has immunity, so he can do it.
He has immunity, but he will prosecute anybody. You're Antifa, and David, you're Antifa, and Julie, you're Antifa because you're anti.
My peanuts here are Antifa.
Because you're speaking out about anti-fascist stuff. And just to finish that point, Bob Iger is Antifa because he is funding Antifa content, which is Jimmy Kimmel talking about how authoritarianism is not a good thing. Right. Which is, any TV show that potentially does not comport to the MAGA worldview. And, whatever it may be. And so I don't know if Iger realizes this yet, but by doing what he's doing, there's no lawyer who's going to, this army of corporate lawyers, they're not going to protect him. Who's he going to go to, Paul Weiss? Like,
yeah,
seriously,
but that's your point. That's the point and I'll kick it, David. I know you want to say something. I'm just saying quickly. That's the point you made before about bullies. Paul Weiss gives in, these other law firms give in, then you can't trust them. These big corporations, Tim Cook shows up and almost gets down on his knees like he's in front of a king and is handing off a 24-karat gold, gift. These other guys pay them off, and it just goes on and on with all, and every time they think, okay, this will stop them, but nothing will stop them.
It also
read
hurts
about
them,
the Sudetenland, for fuck's sake.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It also hurts them. I mean, Paul Weiss lost a lot of clients and a lot of other firms that folded to Donald Trump lost a lot of clients and lost a lot of money. Yep. ABC is due to lose a lot of viewers, a lot of people who are pissed off now with them. And there was some reporting that some of the executives at ABC said they didn't really have a problem with what Jimmy Kimmel said. Jimmy Kimmel was simply speaking about the truth that, there were a lot of Donald Trump supporters, a lot of MAGA world that were looking to blame anybody else but MAGA over the weekend. That was true. So, given that ABC executives realized that this really wasn't, offensive, it was just sort of an aside, why would they feel so obliged simply because the Nexstar, Sinclair stations wanted to take some action about, why wouldn't they stand firm? Because it only hurts their own brand now.
Because it's their bottom line, right? Sinclair obviously pays a lot of money to carry ABC. I mean, that's, they pay what, I don't know, carriage fees or whatever it is, but they pay a lot of money. More importantly, I think they were worried that the Trump administration was going to go after its much more lucrative businesses, the theme parks and the whatevers. I mean, look.
It's monopoly. That's the problem, because all of these guys have these massive conflicts of interest.
Yeah.
All Jeff Bezos cares about is that they, deregulate. I remember in one of the things in the BBB bill was that what was it? Oh, before you can issue bonds if you're an airport. Now, if you're a spaceport, you can issue bonds. Gee, I think there's only 2 billionaires that own spaceports in this entire country. So Bezos gets bought off, and therefore, screw the Washington Post. I mean, that's a loss for him. He doesn't care, right? I mean, so we get that.
Yes, and that's the big problem here, right? Because you have Larry and David Ellison, who just acquired Paramount, which of course owns CBS. And what a coincidence. Not only do they own CBS, they own Comedy Central. For the first time, I think, in history, it turns out that South Park, that has been mercilessly skewing the Trump administration, whoops, we forgot to get it done in time. They don't have a show yesterday, right? Suddenly South Park doesn't have a show.
Those guys have never not gotten anything done in time.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
and you have that. You have them now looking and eyeing Warner Brothers Discovery, which among other things owns HBO and CNN. So get ready for, Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett to go, and Scott Jennings, or somebody more talented than Scott Jennings, to anchor the 8:00 show going forward. If that's
Scott is very talented in his defense, and that look of his that he's put together, the I was born in khakis and docksiders look, is one to behold. Sorry, go ahead.
But so look, I mean, you'll have Greg Gutfeld doing the Tonight Show by the time Comcast is done. Seriously, but you laugh, but like by the time Comcast is done, and Sinclair, which you used to work for, did something yesterday. I don't know if you caught that, which is so gross that it cannot be any more gross. They demanded that if Jimmy Kimmel wants to come back and be carried by them going forward, and he has to be carried by them or else it's not worth it for Disney, I guess, to have the show, he not only has to apologize for whatever he said about Charlie Kirk, which was nothing, but he has to give, and I quote, a sizable personal contribution to Turning Point USA.
Right, to the exact organization that divides us and attacks people. And yeah, Sinclair, just to be clear, I was a contributor on air. Thank God I never actually worked for them. I was the liberal analyst because...
Were you Boris Epstein's counterpart?
I was there before his time. God, would I have loved to argue. You know who I argued against? The counterpart was Armstrong Williams, who over the years has proven himself to be a man of high integrity. Only $250,000, to write that pro No Child Left Behind piece in USA Today. I mean, I don't know how he didn't get $500,000 out of the Bush administration.
I don't know how we didn't all get on that bandwagon too to make a few bucks.
Can I go along what you said? Because I made a list here, all right? And I just threw this up on notes on Substack. But I was like, the last 7 to 8 months, okay? You've got Colbert, Kimmel, Ataya, and I hope I'm pronouncing Karen's name right, Shipley and Tennis, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. You've got them at the Washington Post. Acosta at CNN. The LA Times is coward, whatever. New York Times was doing such, quote, obtrusive editing of Paul Krugman that he left and said he couldn't take it there anymore. ABC News paid Trump off and fired Terry Moran. CBS paid Trump off, and they made it so it was so obtrusive what they were doing that Bill Owens of 60 Minutes had to leave because they wouldn't let him do what he wanted to do. And now we've had a couple of great massacres at MSNBC with Matthew Dowd, Joy Reid, Cape Hart, Fang, and I'm pronouncing it wrong probably, but we can go on and on. I mean, that's 7 to 8 months of, think of the names in there, the bold names from Colbert to Kimmel to Krugman to, Acosta. This is what we've lost in that period of time.
And those are just the people who've been forced out. There's, Pulitzer Prize winners like Eugene Robinson in the Washington Post who left voluntarily. There are others who left voluntarily as well. It's huge.
Right. I don't mean lost them I know what you're saying. I'm not saying they're gone. I've been on Acosta's show here and it's awesome. I hope they come here. It's just what corporate media has done to them is the end. It's what I'm saying.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I've said this for a long time. Legacy media, which you and I and David, you certainly have worked in, I started off more than 20 years ago in 2004 at Fox and then went to CNBC. And Dave and I could have a whole discussion about the NBC years, but and then went back to Fox, which was even crazier. But look, they're not made for this moment because they're totally owned by oligarchs. Like, I don't know how else to say it. And I keep making this Russia analogy, but I hate to say this. Like, this is how it starts when the oligarchs take control of the media. But if you look at history, and it's not just Russia, it's Germany, it's everywhere else. When the oligarchs take control of the media, eventually the government takes control of the media from them and the oligarchs disappear, or they have to bend the knee so much that to do any kind of work, they have to do a kickback to the leader, which is exactly what's beginning to happen now. God only knows what kind of money is going to the crypto fund of Donald J. Trump. But who it's coming from. But, Bob Iger could have taken a stand. And I'm sure what Bob Iger is saying is, I'm doing this for I'm doing this for my shareholders and I have a fiduciary responsibility. And if I didn't do this, they would just never leave us alone. They'd never stop. But it's kind of what Columbia did with the university aspect of this. How about you all get together, Disney, and Paramount won't because they're all obviously owned by Trumpers, but Comcast, Disney, and so on. And you say enough is enough. We're just not going for it. We're just not going to do it.
Well, in Disney's case, to be fair, they realized that the Mickey Mouse logo needed to be updated. And so instead of that cane that Mickey Mouse had for walking, they decided he needed a leash. So that's,
It's true.
What?
It's true.
What?
I think we just need to come up with all sorts of interesting drawings of Mickey Mouse because, again, Walt Disney is so like protective, the Disney organization of that, of Mickey. I mean, there's a lot you can do there. But I'll just say, like, I'm just looking at this stuff, right? Jesse Waters essentially came out and called for anybody on the left. I don't want to say he said anybody should be killed, but he said protesters must accept a one-time offer, one time only, to confess or repent and even get down on their knees to do so. Or if not, they will be dealt with. Okay? What's he threatening there? Don't know. Literally, Brian Kilmeade has just called for the genocide of anyone who's homeless.
The final solution to the homeless problem.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so that's just two examples of people that have either outright called for mass murder or certainly have been implied it. They're still employed. Make a Charlie Kirk joke, though. My God, you've crossed that line.
I wonder if it's something to Cliff and Julie to do with sort of Republicans or at least people in the MAGA world who are offended who they don't do comedy. Like they've never been able to appreciate comedy because in order to appreciate comedy, you have to understand what the joke is. You have to be able to sort of be somewhat self-reflective and they don't have that capacity. As a result, they just get offended. They don't laugh.
Well,
I can absolutely see that.
Comedy's the first thing authoritarians go after because they don't want to be mocked. Like, what's worse for Trump? If I went up to Trump and I started screaming in his face, he could weaponize that. But if I started making fun of him, that's a different story.
That's always been the theory, by the way, behind Blue Amp, what we do, which is, seriously, mockery is the best weapon. They don't know what to do with that.
Yeah. And I don't know what to say about that other than just say that they are completely playing this. It's just out of the authoritarian playbook. It's not even a question of what's happening right now. Yeah, they will eventually come for Substack because this is like the last refuge, right? Google, which owns YouTube, will probably move on anybody who's screaming on YouTube. Like, we all have to think about the fact that they will use any levers at their disposal to silence all dissenting voices. And it starts with corporate media because they have leverage over corporate media, but eventually it will come for everybody else.
I literally put out a warning today to YouTube followers on my wall, and I was like, please come subscribe at Substack because, again, pointing out what the billionaires are doing. And at least with Substack, we get people's emails. We can keep in touch with our community and our supporters. If they were to turn off my YouTube today, that's it. I don't have anybody's information. It's all over. And again, after what we've seen, and I believe what's-his-face from Google was at the inauguration, he hasn't been, in there kissing Trump's ass in the manner in which Bezos has or Tim Cook, but that doesn't mean he won't be next week. They're a huge monopoly with the same mix of interests and conflicts of interest and the rest. And they want deregulation and they want tax breaks and they want projects and they want all this stuff too. So, you're right. Like, we can't predict where anybody like that is going to end.
Listen, if I would have thought even during Trump's first term that this is where we'd end up, this is just striking. It's just striking. And striking is not the word. It's terrifying. But I just don't think corporate media is meeting the moment, right? Because what you have right now in corporate media is, if you have any kind of conversations at all, it's these debates, right? One person is saying the earth is round and the other person is saying the earth is flat, and we're going to have a debate about it. What are we debating?
Right.
What are we debating? Why are we normalizing the earth is flat?
Was slavery good? One side says yes.
I just had that I just had that fight with Jillian Michaels, which, by the way, was the last time I was on that show. Strangely enough, I haven't been invited back. But just to show you,
just because you made the radical argument that maybe slavery is a bad thing.
That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was. And
Freaking people.
And why are we platforming somebody like that to say that, oh, I have an argument. Here's a hot take. Slavery was not a bad thing.
Right.
So what do we do? I mean, in addition to, thankfully, and Cliff and I were talking about this a few minutes ago before you joined, a lot of Americans get it. More Americans are now trusting of online digital media news than they are of the traditional broadcast cable. So Americans get it. But as corporate media has to sort of fold, and as the pressure then gets ramped up on whether it's YouTube or Substack or anybody else, how do we change course aside from, as Cliff was pointing out, trying to make the CEO of Nexstar and Sinclair famous and bombarding Bob Iger and trying to shame him? I mean, what can ordinary citizens do to try to reverse this?
I mean, listen, all they care about is money. So if you are a Sinclair subscriber, just cut the cord.
Mm-hmm. Cut the cord. Exactly.
You could, and say with Nexstar, like, you don't need to. Whatever shows you're watching on Sinclair and whatever shows you're watching on Nexstar, you could watch digitally. You do not need cable. Cut the cord.
Yep.
If you are a Disney person, maybe don't go to Disney. Right?
I gotta tell you guys,
maybe
the lines are long. The hotels suck. Like, I'm sorry, I went into that experience.
And I learned the hard way that the kids like the hotel pool more than they like the attractions.
I was going to tell you, Disney was fucking miserable. I'm just going to be honest with all of you. The whole, I'm going to Disney, to me, it might as well just be like, hi, I'm going to the seventh circle of hell. I
don't know why you're in Florida in the first place.
There's the other thing. What are you doing in that state?
What are you enabling? Why are you spending any money for Ron DeSantis?
Nobody's vaccinated there. You don't want the measles, don't go to Florida.
But if you happen to be in California, you don't need to go to Disneyland. You could go to Universal. There's other places to go.
Right.
If you're a theme park person, I happen to think they're miserable and awful. And I'm so happy to say I have a child who agrees with me. So it's fantastic.
Let me ask this. Who's Lego owned by?
I don't know who Lego's owned by. Oh, no, they're Danish.
Switzerland? Yeah, Danish.
No, they're
cool.
Danish.
So they're not owned here. I will tell everybody it's down
Legoland.
Down the San Diego area, but we took our kids and we were out there. Legoland was awesome. Take them there. It's better and it's Danish owned, so it makes it better right away.
Denmark's cool. So Denmark's good.
Denmark, they vaccinate people and also believe that people should have weird shit like food and healthcare. So,
but the point is, like, you don't need to go to Disney. Like, I know your kids want to go to Disney. I know you've been saving up your money to take them to Disney. Like, you know what? Democracy requires sacrifice. And I don't think it's too much to ask for you to forego a trip to Disney this year. And I don't think it's too much. I don't think it requires too much to forego going to a Disney movie this year. I get it. Your kids really want to see it. Like, this is
wait till it comes out and you can stream it somewhere. And there's always some way to, like, pirate it from somewhere where you don't have to pay these assholes.
Listen, the point is, nobody's asking you to go to war to fight for democracy right now. Nobody's asking you to pick up a musket. All they're asking you is not to go see Moana 7 or whatever movie's coming out. Was
that Moana 7 Electric Boogaloo? I believe it was. Okay.
Moana 7, the Moana-ing. Like, I don't...
the Moana-ing.
Like, whatever. You don't have to do it. It's not a big sacrifice. Just don't.
It really isn't.
Do it. And
in fact, you'd probably be mentally stronger for not doing it.
Yeah. I mean, God,
one of the protests that Cliff and I were just joking about before he came on was, Donald Trump's been flooded with protests in London, although he's 20 miles outside of London, so he probably doesn't see it. But we loved how, like, the night before he arrived at Windsor Castle, one of the most famous landmarks in London, they were able to project the Jeffrey Epstein Donald Trump videos and the birthday card and all that kind of stuff on the side of the castle. It was freaking hilarious. But that also sort of reminded me, and the Epstein scandal isn't going away. How do you think this factors into it? I mean, as part of this, Donald Trump is so annoyed and so infuriated and perhaps so worried about the Epstein scandal taking off that he's trying to tamp down coverage of it. I mean, what's going on with that?
And can I throw something out quickly, Julia? I'd love you to throw in on any of these answers, which is, you're a scholar and I would certainly, like, an expert on Russia. I've read you and Olga Lautman's writing and it's incredible. And so, if you see similarities, or you want to offer in where you think Vlad the Impaler is involved in these, because he certainly is involved in various ways. I would love it, whatever you know, if you felt like tossing
Well,
that in.
here's what I know and here's what I suspect. What I know is that social media since Charlie Kirk's death has been absolutely infected even more than usual by Russian bots who are trying to pit us against each other. They're telling the MAGA folks that this guy was a tranny leftist, and they're telling the left that that this is all a big hoax and this guy was a groiper, whatever you call supporters of Nick Fuentes, and they're ginning up both sides because their goal here is not, in this case, to advocate
it's to
for
tear
one
us
side or
apart
another.
from within.
It's to tear us apart from within, to lead to a civil war. And now you have people talking about a civil war. So mission accomplished. That's one. Two, in terms of what the Russians, listen, it's not, we don't know what Trump's relationship was with Jeffrey Epstein. I think we suspect. But I'll tell you who does know. Every intelligence service worth their salt. The Russians know.
Oh, absolutely.
The British know. The Israelis know. Like, it's not like...
I was reading your series about the pageants over there, and obviously I knew some of that stuff, but you even, because you're so good, and thank you for that, for covering it so well. You know, some of the various hotels that were known, obviously, for being completely bugged in every way humanly possible, having cameras, and I didn't know which hotels were which. I just assumed they all were, but you were getting more specific about how purposely they had him staying at very specific places where they could, you know, and I can't even, with that man's despicable, disgusting appetites, which I don't want to even think about, and having those rooms bugged just with what he must have said, done. I can't even imagine what they have on him.
It's beyond what he said or did. It's, you know, if anybody here should want to go to Russia, I can tell you, don't watch porn because they will find out what you're watching and what your proclivities are, right? Like it's even that granular. It's not even like if you had prostitutes peeing on him, which I know was in the Steele dossier, which was never proved. But I mean, even something like that, they know. They know when you go to the bathroom. They know, like, every aspect of your life when you're there is under surveillance. And that's why I haven't set foot there since Vladimir Putin became president. Like, literally, the last time I was there was in 1998 for that reason. Not because I have anything to hide, but because I saw which way the wind was blowing, and it blew very quickly.
But whether you have anything to hide or not, I mean, you know the way these folks can.
Well,
they grabbed. I mean, they grabbed completely innocent emails from folks who I consider to be friends, like Neera Tanden and other people, and ended up weaponizing those. And so you can take anything out of context.
You can take anything out of context.
Yeah,
and so to your point, Donald Trump was not an unknown quantity. It's not like Joe Smith suddenly became president. This was a guy who had relationships with Russia for many years, going back to 1987 when he and Ivana first went there. They knew that he was desperate to build a Trump Tower there. They knew that he had a proclivity for women because he told Vladimir Putin in a handwritten letter going to the Miss Universe pageant that he couldn't wait to meet the hot Russian women.
Didn't you even say that Ivana's dad was spying on him?
Ivana's dad was, I mean, it's not my supposition. Ivana's dad, when
no, that's what I'm saying. You were sharing that.
Yeah, when Czechoslovakia collapsed, there were records that came out that Ivana's dad was spying on Trump and Ivana and reporting back to the authorities there, which made its way to the KGB. Ivana's whole story is very interesting because Ivana happened to marry a Austrian ski instructor in order to basically, it was a marriage of convenience to get Austrian citizenship and get out of there. She divorced him very quickly, but then Ivana was able, after she married Donald Trump, to come back and forth to her little town in Czechoslovakia.
While it's still, for people that don't get that, while it's still a communist country, that's not the way things work. You didn't get to just leave and come back.
Take it from me. When we left Moscow in 1980, we just knew I would never see my grandparents again. It was just a fact. You were not allowed to go back and forth, especially in the 70s when she did. In the early 80s, she would bring Donald Trump Jr. there. He would spend the summers hunting and fishing with his grandparents. I mean, to tell you that this is like bizarro world, it makes no sense. So I don't know what her relationship was to anything other than to say it doesn't make any sense. So, but the Epstein stuff, there were so many powerful people involved, not just Donald Trump, but so many seems like titans of industry, politicians, the members of the royal family involved, that of course intelligence services would have taken note. And so they know what's in those Epstein files. It's just a matter of time.
Right.
And, you know,
if we could tell them to speed it up a little bit, though, that would be like,
yeah, I mean,
that'd be
Russia,
awesome.
Russia, well, you were talking about Russia. If you're listening, why don't you release
Russia?
those emails?
If you're, if any of you guys in the 16 intelligence services or the Five Eyes, any of you are listening, if maybe around, let's say, September of 2026, you could drop all that information, that'd be great.
But that's my point. My point is, like, I don't know. I guess he's always outrun accountability, so I think he thinks he'll outrun it now. And listen, they can release everything, and he'll say it's fake news, and his base will believe it. You gotta have video of it, and he'll say it's AI, and they'll believe it. But he obviously knows there's something there to be worried about, or else he wouldn't be taking on all this water in exchange for this.
Or he remembers stuff that he did that he feels was wrong, or in hindsight that knows now that if this were to get out, like, my theory is I don't think he really knows what Jeffrey Epstein kept and what's in the files, but Donald Trump does know what he did. And so that's why I think in some ways he's freaked out.
Well, and the Justice Department notably were asked to interview the survivors, and they said no.
Yeah.
And listen, why not? Like, the first thing you do is interview survivors to say, hey, what happened? What was your experience? Who was the person who trafficked you? And for Kash Patel to say that Jeffrey Epstein was not, at his hearing the other day, that Jeffrey Epstein
he trafficked girls for himself.
For himself and nobody else. Well, the question that he should have been asked is, if that's the case, Director, why is Ghislaine Maxwell sitting in prison?
Well, in Kash Patel's defense, both of his eyes may have been arguing with each other over what to... Okay, I'm sorry. We'll move on. Always me having to take a cheap shot. Sorry.
But isn't that the question for Kash Patel? Like, why is Ghislaine Maxwell incarcerated if you don't think that she was involved in trafficking, or she wasn't part of the trafficking?
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, again, there's so much of this stuff that they can try to BS their way around and whatever, but it's just common sense. It's there right in front of you. The biggest problem has been, as you pointed out, that, it's gotten much worse this term. And so as AI has increased and all this, but this has always been his MO, right? I mean, the Roy Cohn way, just admit no, faults and lie and blame the other side and just keep doing it and dig in. And I mean, we have a media, to circle back to where we started, that just doesn't believe that. He doesn't believe in the job that's laid out for it in the First Amendment. It believes in corporate shareholder value and in quarterly reports and profits and whatever, not in you are one of the last bastions of freedom and you need to tell without fear or favor. Because again, if there are Democrats that are in there, whether if it's Bill Clinton, if it's other people, I want to know too. And I worked for Bill Clinton. I loved working for him, and I loved a lot of what he did as a president. And yet, I don't make exceptions for people because I worked for them as friends. If you raped young women, I want you to be in prison the rest of your life. That's it. It's really just that simple. It's disgusting, and it's horrific. So, and I'm not saying he did, because we don't know, but I want to know, and we should know. And the same with Trump, and the same with Prince Andrew, who we already seem to know. And, there's a huge number of other names that popped up in there.
And there's a way to do this that still protects witnesses and victims and all that sort of stuff. I mean, as has been pointed out, the FBI, when they do an interview with somebody, whether it's a financier or Bill Clinton or whoever it is, there's what's called a 302, an interview summary. Those 302s are in the hands of the Department of Justice and the FBI. You can release those and still redact victims, innocent women, people who, don't want to be sort of dragged in publicly to this. But at least that gives you or the other thing is, one of our guests pointed out the other day, even if there's not a black book per se, well, what about Jeffrey Epstein's phone records? I mean, you can go through the phone records and figure out who Jeffrey Epstein was talking to. Why don't we have
who was
that
calling
list?
And who was calling him and who he's texting and who was and I mean, all the contacts, right? I mean,
Yeah, and then put that out, and then let the people say, "Hey,
the plane manifesto rather, who's on the
right.
flight."
Right.
Yeah, and you can put that out, and look, and then somebody can say, "Look, I just, Alan Dershowitz can say, oh, look, I took a couple free flights. It doesn't mean that I got, nude massages or whatever, but put it out there. These guys are not being criminally charged."
He was in his underwear when he got the massages. That's what he said. Come on. God, he's gross.
You're getting, by the way, if I could look at the disgusting birthday book that was released, those girls were not exactly wearing, robes giving massages. They were naked giving massages based on the drawing that was submitted to the birthday book. And if I'm Alan Dershowitz, I must wonder why a 15-year-old naked girl is giving me a massage, even in my underwear.
That's probably a question I would ask. Yes.
Well, he would, because he probably thought she was so attracted to his Harvard legal analysis of the O.J. Simpson trial.
Yeah,
right. He has such a big brain.
Yeah, it's the Klaus von Bülow appeal that really sealed it for her. Like,
yeah, right. That's right. How he became famous, von Bülow.
Remember that? What was that movie? It was actually a good movie.
No, it was Reversal of Fortune.
Reversal of Fortune. That was a great movie.
I went to school in New York with my friend his dad was one of the independent prosecutors the family hired to look into von Bülow, and I always thought, maybe my friend's dad was the bad guy. Now, no, it had to be Dershowitz. There's just no doubt. It had to be Dershowitz.
Dershowitz killed Sonny.
I think that's what I think. Yeah, Dershowitz got in there somehow and did it because he was on the Lolita Express. No, I'm going to stop now.
No, but I mean, you're going to get yourself sued, Alan Dershowitz.
No, I'm not being serious, Alan. Look, Alan's still preoccupied with not being invited to Martha's Vineyard parties and how rough it is for him.
Preoccupied with not being able to buy pierogies at the Martha's Vineyard farmers market or whatever.
He gets upset very easily at things that happen to him. All the indignities a genius such as him has to suffer.
Larry David told him to go fuck himself, and some pierogi guy will not sell him pierogies.
It is right. And also remember, I used to get invited to all of the cocktail parties, and now I just don't get invited anymore.
You guys, we're asking people not to go to Disney when Alan Dershowitz is the one really paying a sacrifice here.
He's the one, exactly. Sacrifice. He sacrificed. Look, he decided when he went to these parties and there were girls under 18 there, he'd fully clothe himself. And so for him, that was, just putting a shirt on was obviously a huge sacrifice. I want to say something quickly though, which is, the data points that you put together, that one puts together, that's what gets me about all of this, right? There's things you have to prove in court, and then there's just things we all know. And Donald Trump, from grabbing by the, whatever, to, can we call your daughter a piece of ass? Sure, go ahead and do that on Howard Stern show. To also on Howard Stern show, bragging about how he bought the pageant so he could walk in on 15 and 16-year-old girls naked. This is what he said. I'm not making
it wasn't that, could I call your daughter a piece of ass? It's, let me also call my daughter a piece of ass.
Oh, right. That too. He walked in on women, who were underage at these pageants. I mean, these are all facts that are in evidence, right? So these are known, corroborated, recorded, or, witnessed facts. So, it's a really far stretch from the guy that bought the pageants to sneak in and peek on 15 and 16-year-old girls that he would have done something untoward with Epstein, right? It's a huge leap there. I don't see how we get there.
I mean, look, I think we all can guess at what happened. We don't know the extent. We don't know who with, but who does know? Some woman who used to be a girl, because Donald Trump was not an unknown figure back in the early 90s and the late 80s. Like, he was everywhere, and especially around New York City. And so if you're somebody who was living in New York back then,
you couldn't get away from the fucking
You couldn't get away. I mean, I still do. And you couldn't, David, I think you lived here too. You couldn't get away with it from it at all. So it's just,
funny story about all this. And speaking of, so my wife, she actually auditioned to be on The Apprentice many, many years ago, before she and I were married. And when she and I were sort of dating, and when Donald Trump was first running, we were sort of talking about it. She's like, yeah, what's wrong with me? I mean, Donald Trump, I thought I was attractive, and he didn't do anything horrible to me.
I know, you're like, why? She's upset about the...
Yeah. And I'm like, Kira, so there must have been something going on then. I mean, maybe But anyway,
maybe she showed confidence because sadly it's people who often don't who who folks prey on more. Not always, but that is a thing. I was in New York back just visiting my family and everything. I want to say again, just to show you can't get away from them. This is maybe 2 years ago, going to one of our favorite Italian restaurants, sit down and right next to us, Marla Maples, was a friend of hers who, was actually, had some, we knew each other through people. I don't know her at all, but it was just through other folks. And she's actually very nice. But then, of course, she endorsed Trump and her daughter and all of that. And how could she do that after how he behaved and all that?
Because
so
there's so much money in it. Because Tiffany, how much money do you think Tiffany stands to gain now that she's the daughter of? I mean, it's Tiffany was at. By the way,
let's count the Bitcoin. That's the answer.
Right, Tiffany. Exactly. Tiffany was at Windsor Castle yesterday, and she was being escorted for the state dinner by no one less than Tim Cook. Tim Cook was her escort into that dinner.
Did he give her a 24-karat gold gift too?
But that's my point. Like, Tim Cook is so desperate to avoid tariffs, and I understand he also has a fiduciary responsibility, and he doesn't want iPhones to cost $3 million. But he is sucking up to Trump in ways that I think history will judge.
Right.
Rupert Murdoch was there, which was shocking to me because I thought he and Trump were suing each other. Trump was
for like $10 billion. Trump is suing Murdoch.
Murdoch was there,
right?
And the royal family didn't invite him because they can't stand him.
I'm shocked he's still alive. I mean, how old is he?
He's going through like the axis of evil too. He was married to a woman who people thought was a Chinese.
Right, and a Putin spy. What was her name?
Now he's married to a Russian woman whose former son-in-law was Roman Abramovich, Putin's banker. It's very, very interesting what's happening with him.
The entanglements of these freaking people, they just are oh my God.
I got to run in a minute because I got to do my own sort of kid duty. But Julie, give us the highlights about where people can find you and what you're working on. And all that
thank
kind of
you
stuff.
so much.
Yes, please. I'll include some of that stuff you're writing. I mean, maybe I don't remember. I follow all your stuff, but I don't remember if it's a different Substack. So make sure that people are seeing, because you're a domestic. You obviously have been a domestic consultant, so you know a lot about domestic politics, but also the Russian stuff is incredible. So
thank you.
I want to make sure people see it all.
Thank you. That? So I write for one Substack, my own, and it's on Salty Politics. It's called Salty Politics. You can find it on Substack, and I am also at Salty Politics on YouTube. And that's how you guys can find me. So I really appreciate this. This was so much fun. I'm so sorry I was late. Can we do it again?
Right. We will do it again. We will do it again. We'll do it again. We'll do it live again, too.
We'll do it live. We'll do it live.
That's how we start every one. So if you've been it, you would have seen us because I just have to scream we're doing it live because it's an ode to a very special man. And I'll just stop. But you know what? Seriously, thank you for being.
Speaking of, your wife is upset she was never hit on by or not upset. She pointed out she was never hit on by Donald Trump. I was never hit on by Bill O'Reilly. So there you go.
Wow.
Apparently, I hear I'm like the only one. So.
Wow. Hey, Julie, it's great having you on the program. Nice to see you.
Guys.
Terrific work as always.
Seriously, and we'll be in touch. We'll definitely get you back on.
Real quickly, my friend Ben Dworkin says hi to you.
Are you friends with Ben Dworkin? Oh,
I
am
God. Friends with Ben Dworkin.
So Cliff, Ben is an old camp friend of mine that I've known since I was in 10th grade.
Did he go to camp with Matt Gross too?
With Dan Gross. He and Dan Gross are friends. Yeah, he's another old camp guy. And Ben's now pretty big in New Jersey politics and academia and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, Ben's a great guy.
So we know all of your friends, David.
That's right.
Seriously, great time, great group. Thank you guys. Thanks for being here, Julie.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Cliff.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. We'll be back next week again. Shall we? Yeah, I think we'll do it again live next week, David. Julie's awesome, and I'm so glad she was able to join us. I'm glad her son is okay. Fascinating and interesting, and I can't. We will have somebody else special and wonderful for next week, won't we? I think
absolutely. It'll be you and me for sure, Cliff.
We're always here, no matter mostly here. And as I told you all. So again, please subscribe at blueamp.co. We'll be here for Amped Up every Thursday from 2 to 3. And otherwise, as we've told you before, if you subscribe, get a paid subscription, not only do you get to give money to the Soundcheck Fund where we support regular creators, but you'll get the new series, the special series, we haven't come up with a name yet, of David and I telling you our inside, behind the scenes stories of the crazy shit and I'm telling you, like, seeing people in drug-induced I mean, the stuff I saw in political campaigns, how I haven't written a book on it, I don't know, but you will find it out at all if you become a paid subscriber. So do that. Thank you for being here, David. Always the best. Emmy Award-winning David Schuster.
And you got to do that sign-off that we love.
That's right. My friends, and some of you will know the movie, I hope you do. As the sun sets slowly in the west, we bid you a fond farewell. See ya.